and the long trail of dinosaur footprints, 166 million years old, that have been found in Oxfordshire.
So fossilised bones, not the only way of studying dinosaurs. Preserved footprints can also offer an insight into their existence.
Now, some of the biggest trackways ever found in the UK have been discovered in Oxfordshire. Scientists are hoping it'll help them understand even more about how dinosaurs moved around. Here's our science editor, Rebecca Morrell.
Following in the footsteps of a Jurassic giant. This is where a dinosaur walked 166 million years ago, its footprints revealing the comings and goings of a prehistoric world. But it wasn't alone. Different trackways crisscrossed this entire site. They were discovered on the floor of a limestone quarry in Oxfordshire by one of the workers.
So I was doing basically clearing the clay, and I was hitting a hump.
So like
yeah,
this
yeah,
thing
it was,
here?
as it turned out, it was this front bit I was hitting, and I thought it's just an abnormality in the ground, but then it got to another, about 3 metres long, it was hump again. And then it went another 3 metres, hump again. And when I got out and examined it, it looked like footprints. And the weird thing about it was, when you sit there, it was like, I'm the first person to see them. Yeah, it was a bit of a tingling moment, really.
Over the summer, scientists, students and volunteers joined the dig. They discovered about 200 footprints, some stretching for 150 metres, making it the largest track site ever found in the UK and one of the biggest in the world. This is the first trackway that was discovered here. It was made by a sauropod, a huge long-necked dinosaur. But the team quickly realised it wasn't the only one, and they found footprints from 2 more sauropods, as well as from a smaller meat-eating 2-legged dinosaur called a megalosaur. And they think that there are plenty more of these waiting to be discovered here. The area was once a tropical lagoon, and the tracks were made as the dinosaurs walked across the mud. But something happened that stopped the footprints from being washed away, possibly a storm that covered them up with sediment, perfectly preserving them.
So the really lovely thing about a dinosaur footprint, particularly if you have a trackway, is that it is a snapshot in the life of the animal. You can learn things about how that animal moved, you can learn how fast it was moving, you can learn exactly what the environment that it was living in was like. So tracks give us a whole different set of information that you can't get from the bone fossil record.
We're coming up to a dinosaur crossroads. What you have here are footprints from a sauropod, and you can actually see as it pressed down into the mud how it created this ridge here. There is also a footprint from a smaller 2-legged meat-eating dinosaur called a megalosaur, and it was moving in this direction. The question is, which one walked through here first? And scientists think it was the sauropod, because you can see how the smaller megalosaur footprint slightly crushed down this ridge as it was walking through. At the Oxford University Museum of Natural History, a Megalosaurus specimen is one of the world's most important fossils.
Megalosaurus was the first dinosaur ever named anywhere in the world. So this exact fossil, this is the real one in my hands, this fossil started all of the last 200 years of dinosaur science. The whole animal would have been between 6 and 9 meters in length, and in life this animal would have had these impressive serrated teeth all the way along its jawbone. These were agile, carnivorous predators. They were the largest predatory dinosaurs in the Jurassic period in Britain.
The future fate of the trackways hasn't yet been decided. The quarrying will go on here for several years. But paleontologists think there are more footprints, echoes of our prehistoric past, just waiting to be discovered. Rebecca Morrell, BBC News, Oxfordshire.
Let's talk to Professor Aliceroberts, who presents the BBC Two series Digging for Britain. That's going to feature the discovery of those footprints in an episode next week. Good morning to you. Just tell me, you've seen these footprints. Just how exciting is this for the world of science?
It's incredibly exciting, and as soon as my colleague Richard told me about them in the summer, I was pretty desperate to have them on Digging for Britain, because Digging for Britain is an archaeology series. It's about human culture in the past, But occasionally we make an exception for a really stunning paleontological fossil discovery. So when I heard about these trackways and Richard said, I think we've got the longest trackways in Europe, I thought, I really want to see them for myself, and I also want to share them with everybody. So I'm really pleased that we've been able to do that. And they are incredible. I mean, they stretch, I think the longest trackways stretch about 150 metres. So it's not just one or two footprints. I mean, you're looking at animals moving through the landscape. It's incredible. And you get a really visceral impression of these dinosaurs, of their feet squelching into this sticky mud. And then incredibly, those footprints being preserved for 166 million years.
So what does it tell you? What do you learn? Because and this is obviously someone who's not a paleontologist. I would have expected that, you know, these animals would have walked and, you know, walked on the planet. So we've seen that's not new. What does it tell us in terms of what we can learn?
It's really interesting because it complements what we know from the fossils. And we saw some of the fossils in that video that you just showed. And obviously the fossils, the remains of these animals' teeth and their bones, we can now analyse those in increasingly sophisticated ways. So we can put back their anatomy, we can flesh the bones, we can predict how they would have moved. But what the footprints do is give us another line of evidence, and they show us how fast those animals could move. You're seeing something which is much more dynamic, but it definitely complements the rest of what we get from the fossil record. We're seeing behaviour. We're seeing a snapshot of behaviour. And I just love to imagine the landscape that these animals were moving through, you know, lumbering through, creating these enormous footprints and moving across a landscape which is probably quite watery. We're looking at lagoons and marshes, and there's probably not any plants just where these trackways are. So those big sauropods must have been looking into the distance and seeing something that they could have eaten. It wouldn't have been trees. It would have been things like ferns and horsetails at the time. So you just get an incredible impression of the environment too.
Alice, good morning to you. It's Charlie here. Go back to some
Hi,
of the
Charlie.
basics for me, would you? So, the size of these footprints, can you give me a kind of hands demonstration? How big is the actual footprint? And I'm trying to picture the dinosaur as it's walking. Say you take that 100 metres, I think it's 150 metres, but how many strides? What's the gap between the strides as well?
The gap between the strides is surprisingly short. And what Richard and Kirsty and all their colleagues, so this is a lovely collaboration between the University of Birmingham and the University of Oxford, what they'll be able to do is work out how fast those animals were moving by looking at that gap between the footprints. But they're big. I mean, the sauropod prints are probably about that big. And the Megalosaurus, this, you know, basically the T-Rex of Oxfordshire, 166 million years ago, again, enormous footprints. And you know, you're standing next to them, they're kind of this big, and you're suddenly struck in a really visceral way by the reality of these animals that no human's ever seen. I mean, that's what I found incredible about it. I obviously knew what I was going to go and see, but I still wasn't quite ready for that moment where you feel like you're teetering on the edge of, well, first of all, that depth of time, all those millions of years, but also I think is the closest you can come to really appreciating the size of those animals. It's like they've just walked past, and they were enormous.
I tell you what, we have quite a lot. It was Gary, wasn't it, who was the worker who first saw them. And we have quite a lot to thank him for, because very easily, I would imagine, you're working in a quarry on a construction site just to not, frankly, pay much attention.
Yeah, absolutely. And Gary was brilliant. I chatted to him and he told me about feeling these bumps as he moved the bucket of the digger through, and realising that there must be something there. But everybody at the quarry, Mark Stanway, his whole team there at Smiths Bletchington have been absolutely brilliant, and they're all very, very excited about this new discovery. You know, they've been working hand in hand with the paleontologists and helping them to excavate these footprints. So yeah, I think it was a great day for everybody when Gary found them.
Alice, thank you so much. Professor Alice Roberts, presenter of Digging for Britain. If you want to see, thank you, Alice. If you want to see more on those trackways, Digging for Britain on BBC Two, the iPlayer, from Wednesday, the 8th of January.